Guys, welcome to the Aamsco Lighting Podcast. Today we are here with Charlie Sacks and Bob Rosenzweig, and we're going to talk a little bit about the lighting industry, the importance of vertical lighting, and bathroom vanity mirrors. So, Bob, take us away. You and Charlie.
Well, Charlie actually designed some fixtures for us vertically, and they take off from the original Alinea, and we probably still sell some of those fixtures to this day using LED tubes. I think we're still doing some. Well, Charlie, tell us about vertical lighting, sort of horizontal.
Well, in a bathroom, the lighting is more functional than it is anywhere else in your house or in the space. And basically, if you want to understand more how why vertical lighting works, you just look at the old theaters, even current theaters. You do makeup. They light all around the mirror. But the vertical part of that is probably what has transitioned best to bathrooms, to vanities, because you're lighting your face from the side equally and a little bit from the top and a little bit from the bottom. You're eliminating shadows basically. And that's the key because in a bathroom, not only do you want it to look good when it's designed, but you want it to make you look good when you use it. And that's the one strong difference that vanity lighting has over lighting, let's say, in a kitchen or somewhere else, where it's functional everywhere else, but it's mostly decorative and part of the design. So that was something that we stuck with, whatever form of light source that we used. There was always a vertical element to it. And somewhere in the 50s and 60s, and you might be able to add to that, Bob, when building,
Yeah, I remember.
construction became so prevalent, the baby boomer generation. After the war, Second World War, they were building houses and apartment buildings,
Hmm.
and they just started putting one light over the top of the mirror.
Well, it
And
all
that's why you'll
started with
see,
the ball lamps. When the G40 ball lamps came out in a big way, I guess in the 60s, that was the look. So they would just take a light bar and stick it across the top, and then that was all the rage.
well,
I
but
mean,
it was like,
everybody had ball
economical.
lamps. It was
You put one
economical.
outlet over the top of the mirror, you put a higher wattage in there, in an apartment sized bathroom, which is probably 5 by 6 in most New York apartments in most cities. You put in 300-400 watts of light and you just blow the place up with light. And that
Well, it was a popular
eventually do the
bulb.
same thing. It'll
Yeah.
reflect so much light off the walls that you don't get
Hmm.
shadow.
But
But
everybody liked that look, that big glow.
yeah,
Until then,
and
light
it
bulbs.
stuck.
Yeah.
But today, the way they design bathrooms, there you have chandeliers over the soaking tub.
Mhm.
You have maybe connected to the bathroom, the dressing area with a table where you could lay out your clothes. It's such a big space now, bathrooms, and it's such an important part of a home design that the basically you're lighting a space with task lighting rather than general lighting. Just you know,
Well, I
the
mean,
days of one light in the center
yeah,
on the ceiling are gone.
after the Second World War, they were building houses that were like 1,500 square feet. That was the typical like Levittown house, and the bathroom was small. And I think even in those days, you only had one bathroom. I mean, it's now everybody has a bathroom, and the bathrooms are as big as the bedrooms used to be in the Levittown houses.
Very true.
You know, maybe we'll go back to the little houses again when it gets very expensive.
So lighting in a space consists of more than just the vanity lights. There'll be lights that are recessed in the ceiling. There'll be other lights in the room as well. So it's a combination of things. And the vertical lighting, and it doesn't have to be a linear strip. It could be, and whatever it is, you want it centered 30 to 36 inches apart, and so that when you're standing 24 inches away on a counter, you're getting the light properly placed on your face. If the lights are too far out, then they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to work,
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't work. The mirrors that Aamsco is making now
Mm-hmm.
basically work on that same concept,
Mm-hmm.
vertical lighting. But you do offer mirrors that go round, where you're lighting all around, and square where you're lighting the bottom, top, you know,
Mm-hmm. And
the four sides.
Bob was talking about how the mirrors are great, but the number one solution that he would thought is a better solution is the Alinea, just because it's so you can basically put it wherever
Well,
you
it's
like.
it's not inside the glass.
Yeah.
So
Right.
if you're using a mirror with the lights inside the glass, it's really like you're looking at two headlights. And of course, you definitely need some kind of light source above your head.
Mm-hmm.
While the Alinea, it's more three dimensional. It's not inside the mirror; it's outside,
Yeah.
and the shape of the tube is causing the light to disperse much better. You would still need a light
LEDs
above, though.
LEDs have a beam spread of approximately 120 degrees, and they need optics to help spread the light out further or direct it specifically. So when the LEDs are in the mirrors, the frosted slot is the limit to how that beam spread is going to be coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So in Bob's line, he doesn't make, unless it's custom and they insist on it, he doesn't make mirrors, I think, wider than 36 inches. Am I correct? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, then
Yeah.
if we was wider, we would put a like a
A
strip, a
third
light,
light.
a third light in the middle, like a his and hers type bathroom light, where we would have
Will normally be
one on
for a
each
two
side.
sink situation.
Yeah, two sinks, but we wouldn't have it any further than that.
But a lot of the competitors, I won't mention, will have mirrors in their standard offering, 48 inches, 60 inches apart with two vertical slots. And
Well,
that's more for the wow factor. They
Mm-hmm.
don't
yeah,
function very well.
but the client won't be happy with that. They're going to find it like very dark in the middle.
Mm. But you talked about how some of these lighting, just because you have two lineas or two lights that are on vertical, you will need a light above you as well. As Bob mentioned that.
Right, because even with the Alinea, you're still going to need some light to kind of fill in the shadows
Yeah.
because
Well, every bathroom will have additional light source. Either smaller, it have a light on the ceiling, or
mhm,
people put recessed lights just as pin lights,
Yeah.
just to fill in
Fill the
space.
space.
right.
And the Alinea, the original Alinea bulb, the incandescent. You remember, an incandescent filament radiates 360 degrees.
Yeah,
It's a
well,
pinpoint source, and it radiates out 360 degrees.
I know we all
So a
miss the,
surface
the old.
mounted Alinea is gonna radiate out into the room.
Mm.
You don't have to worry about directing the light.
What about choosing color temperature? Certain people, with your skin tone, should probably stay away from certain lights, or how do you go about best choosing what is best for you and you as a person?
The LED is very similar to a phosphor, believe it or not. The
Mm.
color is determined by the little phosphors on the LED. So the construction, even though very miniature, is very similar to that. You have an electrical diode. So if you had just clear glass, an LED would be blue. Blue is
Mm-hmm.
a native LED. That's the color. That's what it's going to be.
Okay.
So the phosphors determine the color. And it's hard to get accurate color with LEDs because uh, because they tend to be a little more to the green or to the red. So when they produce them, um, they sometimes have to bin them, produce a lot of one type at one time.
Mm.
Because if you take a LED produced in June and LED produced a year, 6 months earlier, they may not be exactly the same when it comes to white.
Mm.
Comes to a white color. But the better phosphors will give you the better color rendering.
Mm.
But mostly everything has come up to a higher quality now. 5 years ago it was a thing. 10 years ago it was terrible.
Mm.
But and Bob introduced the Alinea, he wasn't the first to make a linear strip. When he made the linear LED, he took his time to make sure the color rendering was there
Mm.
because it had to produce the same quality of light that the incandescent did.
And I think we
But now it's
did a
easier
good
to
job
obtain those
mimicking it,
chips.
bringing the LEDs way down to like 2300 Kelvin. It was very similar to the old incandescent. I
Eh,
mean, there are some, I guess you could call them linear linear bulbs that are like closer to 3000, which is brighter, a little more harsh. It might be better if it was used by somebody who needed a little more light.
Mm.
But we're about the only, as far as I know, we're the only ones really offering the LED in kelvins as low as 2300 that actually mimics the light that we used to get out of the incandescent.
It's pretty awesome. Pretty
Yeah,
great.
making the light bulb and making like the vanity mirrors, making or we well I was with Aamsco for 15 years, so it kind of is a part of me now. Will
Mm-hmm.
always be a part of me. But it was a very serious point that we keep to the you know the technology and make sure that the color rendering, the positioning, everything has to be, no matter what the fixture looks like, because that's just decorative.
Mm-hmm.
A fixture is basically clothing for light bulbs,
Mm-hmm.
but the light bulbs have to perform. And Bob started in light bulbs, so
Yeah.
he was always, and Europe, believe it or not, was always a little ahead of America because of their energy situation. They always had to be more conscious of how they use energy. They pay more.
Mm.
So a lot of fluorescent and LEDs and types of fluorescents came from Europe before we adopted it into the American market.
What is Europe doing right now that's kind of, on the edge of things in terms of in the lighting world, I guess in terms of what we're talking about right now?
Well, I think they are still with OLEDs. We offer OLEDs, and we offer an LED which is very similar to an OLED, almost like a hybrid type bulb, in that it acts and looks like an OLED, but it's really an LED. And we're getting orders out of companies in Germany and in Italy that insist on this good color rendition,
Mm.
more so than the US, because I think the US primarily is price driven and these cost more to make. And of course, we're also more oriented into just letting the Chinese design the product and we just become the salesman for the Chinese. While Europe is still trying to make a product in Europe using European technology and product. And price, it's important, but it's not the most important thing. There, they really go for cutting edge technology.
Mm.
Price, I mean, it can't be crazy, but they're willing to pay more, as they always did in Europe, for everything. They pay more for cars, they pay more for electric, they pay more for shoes. They just don't buy like we do. We're not, it's not consumer driven. It's there, it's really technology driven.
Mm,
The US is consumer driven.
mm.
And that's why price is more important in this country than it is in Europe.
Now, it, it's there's so many parts to moving parts to this and demand, and but I know in America we like to like renovate something and then 5 years later renovate it again and renovate it again, and it's all about disposable products.
Mm.
A lot of things that we get are made to not last. Your coffee makers, your Keurig. There's always a new Keurig out.
Yeah.
Let's get the latest and greatest. The
Yeah.
TV. Let's get the latest and greatest television.
That's why I don't use Keurig.
Right? But um, a quality product you'll have for many years.
Yeah.
You know. So
And what is quality? Let's talk a little bit about, like, what how do you define quality for our listeners out there?
quality is using just better parts, and it's not always more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when I worked for Bob, we did a lot of other custom work from time to time where we used regular screw-in light bulbs and stuff. I made sconces. I designed sconces for projects, but I'd use porcelain,
Mm-hmm.
not phenolic.
Mm.
Uh, Porcelain's just 25 cents more, 50 cents more,
Mm.
but it'll last for a long time.
Okay.
And then copper shell screw in, so that the bulb won't fuse to it. If the
Mm.
bulb winds up lasting 3 years, from time to time people have to like get turn the electric off and then get a plier
Mm.
because the glass broke because they used a
Aluminum.
bare nickel shell going to an aluminum base. Right? Bulbs used to be cheap. Bulbs would be made with aluminum based bulbs.
You had to push down on the bulb before you unscrewed it, or
And
it would break
aluminum
apart.
diffuses with the metal,
Hmm.
the other metal. It's not made for duration.
Mm.
So these are the kind of things that went in. In Linear, I went to stainless steel screws.
So those little things that make a massive difference.
Sure,
Yeah.
because if you used any kind of zinc screw, electricians, no matter what they're using, they have a power tool for that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're putting in a little 440 screw to hold down the cover of the Alinea, and they're going into that with a even a power driver, and they're
Mm.
stripping the screws.
Wow.
Yeah, the electricians, they're in a big hurry because they're making a lot per hour,
Yeah.
and the boss is telling them get those fixtures hung fast. And it's usually the first year apprentice who isn't making that much but has to learn. And it's all about hurry up and get it done because
Hurry up
you're
and get it
costing me
done.
money.
And that was the little things that you could do to make a product last longer.
Mm.
And we had people call us. This is installed in my house for 20 years. Can I get the parts for it?
Mm.
You still have
So, you know, you don't feel good about someone asking for parts, but you do feel good that they're asking for it 20 years later.
Mm.
Yeah, as far as I know, one of our first Alineas, which was installed in Port Washington, Long Island, in about 1982, is still operating.
Mm. That's great.
Hmm.
So to conclude everything, this has been a great podcast. It's been great. Talk about a lot of history and quality over just quantity, and how the U.S. is more of a consumer market versus Europe is more of Price is not an issue. Quality is very important.
Yeah, technology is very important to the Europeans.
Yeah,
They want cutting edge technology,
yeah,
and Americans just aren't willing to pay for it.
yeah,
So they
yeah.
don't really care. Like Charlie says, they're going to redecorate anyway. Who cares? It's like the hotels. They don't want such a good mirror because they say the guests destroy everything. They have to redecorate every suite probably every 5 years.
Mm.
It's different. It's just different mentality. Maybe. Well, we are with our lightly products. We're selling more in Europe than we are here.
Mm.
So it must be saying something. Same thing with the OLEDs.
Any final words you want to say, Charlie? Any final words you got for the lighting industry and kind of where it is?
No, I've said it all. It's been great to thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
I'm glad to be a
fun.
part of this. I'd like to be a part of others down the road.
Oh yeah,
Definitely. And hope people learn from this that just look for quality so that
yeah,
you could spend your money on something else.
yeah, yeah. That's
To
right.
take away. And then of course, lighting is just about vanity lighting is how it makes you look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Keep the shadows away. Unless of course you're doing a horror movie that afternoon.
Yeah, well, then they could use regular light fixture for that. Yeah.
That was great. Well, thank you, Charlie. You've been awesome. Thank you for this. This has been fun.
You're very welcome. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
See you, Charlie.